So, about a week ago, I was posting some pictures on a CB radio forum about my CB and what exactly I did to mount it. I have a Grand Prix, an 04 Grand Prix, so it's the latest or the last body style. And when I bought this, I was actually planning on going on some road trips, which I did, and I used it extensively, not so much to talk, but to listen in on traffic reports and so on like that. And it really came in handy, and I knew it would because I was actually into CB radios when I was in high school. I spent a lot of money on my setup, and back then, though, I had a Yukon. I had a lot of room. I was easily able to mount it under the dash, and I still had plenty of room. But one thing with the Grand Prix is there's really not too many places you can mount it. And I looked on the internet, and I actually saw somebody mount theirs. It was underneath the visor, and so the visor hung down. And what I found is that was going to be, well, not only it would always be in your face, but I didn't really want to drill into the roof to mount it. I saw some people actually mount it to the dash. Yes, that's dusty dash. I haven't cleaned it in a while. But I did see a few people mount them to the dash. That's fine, but yet again, I was planning on using my GPS, so I would have a lot of things in the windshield, and I really didn't like that idea. So what I ended up doing is I was looking. There used to be a cubby hole here. Those of you who own the 04 to 08 Grand Prix know that there's a storage area down here. And actually, it's not really used for anything other than storage. And I started to wonder if possibly I could put it in there. Well, what worried me to begin with was if it was going to be laying flat, how well would I actually be able to see the CB radio, especially at night? So I knew that I wanted to mount it at an angle upward towards myself so that I would easily be able to read what was going on. And what the difficulties that I ran into was actually getting it to stay at this angle here. Well, this whole piece here, this entire center console here, it actually is one big piece. And it extends all the way underneath, probably a good 8 inches underneath the dash that you can't see. So what I ended up doing for this, it's actually pretty simple. It's probably not considered the best rig as far as modification to get this thing to stay exactly where it's at. But believe it or not, it doesn't move at all. It's really secure where it's at. I've never had it come out of place. It actually sits perfectly where it's at. But this plastic piece right here, I actually had to trim it. And I trimmed it in a fashion, and I know that you won't be able to see this. Maybe you can, I'm not sure. But I trimmed it in a fashion so that the CB radio would actually, the front end of the radio would be sitting right here. And the base of the radio, the bottom of the radio where the speaker is, would actually sit on top of this, but only halfway back. So it would actually angle itself upward. So it's actually sitting on this plastic piece here. But I've cut enough of it out so that it actually angles, and so it's kind of like it's dipping down into the center console. And that was actually pretty easy. But another thing that I found is that this side piece here, and there's another one just like it on the other side, was actually the width. It was too narrow. So when I was setting the CB radio in, it was actually sitting on these side pieces, so that defeated the purpose of trimming this top piece. So what I actually had to do, and it's those of you who already own these cars probably already know what I'm talking about, but I actually had to trim this piece right here. I actually cut it so that the CB radio itself would actually fit in between without any issues. It's really hard to see because I've got this plastic piece in the way, but this has actually been trimmed so that the CB actually just slides right down in there. It worked better than I thought it was going to. I was just trying to come up with something quick. So both sides have actually been trimmed. I know you probably can't see this, but this whole thing has actually been cut because it used to extend almost all the way to the back, or actually the front it would be. And what I did is I trimmed it so that the CB radio fits behind here. It's actually right behind here, and it just slides right in, and it works really well. Now, I did have some vibration issues when I was at highway speeds. The particular Grand Prix that I have is a competition GTP, and the suspension is a little bit stiffer than the base models. So I did notice that at highway speeds, this was actually vibrating quite a bit. And what I had found is that just having the CB just sit there was actually causing it to move up and down just a little bit. It was just a little bit. It wasn't enough to do any damage to anything, but it was enough to actually kind of get on my nerves. So what I actually did is I used this side piece and the other side of it to my advantage. There are two mounting screws that are on the side of the CB. They're big round screws. They're flat blade screws, and they're pretty universal. They come with all CB radios. But what I actually did for this is the CB itself is actually, I have the screws going in the side, and I have them out just enough so that there's a gap between the head of the screw and the CB itself. And it actually sits right on top of this here. And that actually worked out a lot better than just having it lay there. The angle is still good. It's not as high as I really wanted it to be, but the angle is actually still really good. The angle was actually a little bit higher when I didn't have it angled, or when I didn't have it sitting on this side piece here. So I have that set up for both sides, and it actually worked really well. I don't know how well you can see in here. There's a lot of reflection, but it actually worked really well for this application. Now, one thing that I did run into, even with the mounting holes or screws with it sitting on there, this piece here, as you can see here, actually goes straight back into the dash. Well, the CB radio itself is actually not that way. It's actually at an angle. I don't know if you can see that well, but it's actually angled. So you've got a piece here that's going this way, and you have the CB that's going that way. Well, what I found is that when I actually trimmed this piece, it became very flexible. There wasn't as much there to keep it rigid, so what ended up happening is I was able to take this. It looks like it's straight going back, but it actually bends just a little bit to the inside. So I actually have it bent. Now, it sounds like it's just some cheap mock-up or whatever, but it actually works really well. And the great thing is, even though I have trimmed and modified these three pieces of plastic here, I did not modify the tray that actually goes in here. So if I wanted to sell the car easily, I've got everything saved. All I have to do is slide the old tray back in, and there's no way, unless somebody who was an expert on Grand Prix or whatever would have to get up underneath here and realize that this has been trimmed. So otherwise, it works, it works great. And actually what I found, another thing, when I trimmed that piece so that it's not going back as far back to the front firewall, is that my feet actually are warmer because the air is actually being distributed more to where I drive than it did before. There's actually a lot of the air is actually coming out, because it used to be the air would just come out the top like this, but now actually both of my legs actually stay quite warm in the wintertime. So it worked out pretty well how I had it set up, and I was actually worried at first because it wasn't turning out like I wanted it to. I did a lot of measurements. I drew it all out to try to figure out how I was going to do it, and it really kind of worried me because I was making these modifications to this center console, and I was worried that I was going to go too far and then it wouldn't work at all, but it worked great. Now, it's not going to work for everybody. There are a few CB radios out there that are actually, well, a lot actually, that are thinner than this, and you can actually just slide them right into the center console. I bought a cheaper, I don't remember the model number, but it was one of the Cobras that was the compact model, and it actually slid right into the tray just fine. It stuck out quite a bit, so I knew I was going to have to modify the back of the tray, probably drill it out, and then it would just slide right in. That was fine. But here again, I had the same problem of the CB was sitting flat, and it was from the view, it wasn't that that great to actually be able to see what was going on with the CB. I actually wanted to angle it up. So another thing, those of you who own the 04 Plus Grand Prix, all the lights are all red. And I just happened to be looking at other CBs for measurements, and I came across this CB, and it's newer. Some people are having problems with them. I honestly have never had an issue with the CB, but I'm not going all out with a peak and tune. I don't have a Wilson 5000 on here. I mean, it's a real basic setup, but it was red. It matched the rest of the lights. I actually really like how it matches everything. The CB radio itself is black, so it matches all the other color, and then the face is red. Of course, you can change the colors if you want, but I stuck with the red simply because it matched the rest of the interior lights. So for my needs, for my particular needs, this worked out perfect. As I said, I wasn't going all out with the CB. If I really wanted to go all out, I'd probably get a Galaxy or something like that, but this is just for travel. This is just for me being able to listen to the drivers for traffic information, things like that. I mean, it actually it works perfect for my needs, and really that's all that matters. Now, I know that there are people out there who are very skilled in modifications, fabrications, things like that, who probably could have come up with some kind of little system that would sit over the hump that is underneath the console, and then the CB radio would slide in. That's fine, whatever. This is just for me. It's secure. It's not moving. Yes, it's rigged up a little bit, but it's perfect for me. And best of all, if I need to get rid of the radio, then I can just slide the old cuppy hole back in, and I'm good to go. Now you can obviously see that this is kind of in the way. Yes, when you're parked, I actually have to kind of reach around with my 2 fingers here to change the channels and so on. But when I'm actually on the road, I don't have a problem with that, because even when it's in drive, there's plenty of room there. I can see the CB radio just fine from where I'm at. It's great. Those of you who have the 04 Plus Grand Prix, you'll know that the dash is actually facing the driver more. This is actually a head-on shot. I'm looking straight, and as you can see here, it's angled towards the driver. So this is actually perfect, the way that this is all set up here. So, like I said, for my needs, it worked out just fine. Of course, if anyone wanted any tips about how to do this, that's fine. But like I said, this is not a professional installation here by any means. There's no kit out there for this kind of stuff. It's something that I had to write down and figure out the best way that I could with the tools that I had to get this done. And this is what I came up with. It's not perfect, but when you're looking at it, you really don't notice that much. The only thing that I notice when I'm looking at it, and this is just me being nitpicky, is that the right side of the radio is actually just a little bit lower than the left. But when you're driving, when you actually have this view here and you're driving and you look down at the CB to see what's going on, you don't notice anything at all. So yes, if I wanted to get down and look at it and, oh my god, it's a little uneven here and whatever. Honestly, I'm not a perfectionist when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's functional, it works, it's clean. The installation is it's nice and compact, so really no problems. Now, as far as powering it, I had a couple of options there. And I was actually on the Grand Prix forums for a while trying to figure out if anybody had a suggestion to power it. I did not want to use the cigarette lighter, but I wanted to permanently wire it so that when my vehicle was actually off, then the CB radio would still function. So if I was in the car and it wasn't running, then I would be able to have this on. So I wanted it to the battery. Well, obviously the cigarette outputs go to the battery. So what I ended up doing is I pulled the center console out and I used wire joiners to connect the positive and the negative to the power that's running to both of these 12 volt power outputs. So that's how I did that. I also have a power filter underneath there. It's probably going to be hard to see, but I do have a power filter under there. What I had noticed when I first had this installed is that I was getting some noise. The noise actually wasn't coming from the car itself. It was actually coming from my car charger for my phone. And I had done a lot of research to figure out how to avoid that, and there really wasn't anything quick that I could come up with. So what I did is I ended up going to Radio Shack and I bought their 20 amp power filter, and I threw that in there, and it made a difference. It's not totally gone, but it did make a difference. I don't hear it at all when my charger isn't plugged in, so no big deal there. But obviously on a long trip when I'm using the GPS on my phone, it's always plugged in, so it can be a little bit annoying, but just kind of drown out the sound really. But another thing that I did is most CB radios have a PA speaker output. And because I was traveling at night a lot with my family and they were sleeping, I didn't want them to have to listen to the CB radio. So what I ended up doing, and I actually have the cord inside right now, but what I ended up doing is I got a stereo to mono headphone plug, plugged it in the back with an extension cord, and that actually ran up to a set of headphones, and I had one ear basically hooked up to the CB at all times. So that was actually pretty neat. But for those of you high-tech CB goers, you fanboys out there or whatever, you're probably going to laugh at this. You're going to say, why'd you get that radio? Blah, 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 blah. I really don't care. It fits my needs just fine. I ended up getting it mounted in here just fine. And really, that's all that matters. So I'm pretty happy with it. I've had it in here for probably about 9 months now, and it's been working just fine. If you have any questions, though, I would be happy to give you pointers. I'm not going to say that you got to cut this, this, and this, and this. These are the dimensions, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's radio is going to be different. I'll tell you exactly how I did it, and you can go from there. But honestly, it took me probably it took 3-4 days for me just to plan it out. And then the modifications, I just used a Dremel and just trimmed out the pieces and went from there. I mean, it was just basically, as I was going along, figuring it out. So anyway, that's pretty much it on that. this video is getting long, so I'll let you guys go. If you got any questions, let me know.